This episode is brought to you by Updater, the app that gets residents move-in ready faster. Did you know that residents who are happy at their move-in experience are 59% more likely to renew their lease? Move-ins matter. So get them right with Updater. Visit go.updater.com/Mike to learn more and receive a special gift when you book a demo. All right, welcome to Collective Conversations. I'm your host, Mike Brewer, and I am joined today by very special guest, John Carlson, president of Mark Taylor. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Great to be here.
It's exciting. I know you and I sat on a stage back in, I think it was November of last year, and I had the great privilege of interviewing you and Todd. An incredible relationship that I think you have with Todd there in Arizona. That was a great privilege for me, and I appreciated the time with you. So between November and now, a lot has happened out in the world. Do you want to speak to a little bit of that as it relates to Mark Taylor and what's happening in the broader economy?
Sure. We look at the world from obviously a macro perspective when it comes to fundamentals in the marketplace, and without question, you're never bigger than the market. And the macro fundamentals are, I'll just say it this way: there's storm clouds ahead in many relevant areas of the world, and I think for real estate specifically, interest rates have been the topic of du jour lately, and certainly if you look at transaction volumes, price evaluations, all of those things in the multifamily sector, we've almost come to a grinding halt. Why is that? Obviously, you're seeing that rent growth story that we had for 5, 6, 7 years, 5, 10, 15, 20% growth has vanished. So flat or negative. Phoenix and Las Vegas actually, I think, 29th and 30th in top 30 metros last month with negative rent growth. So great for the consumer. I think it's a bit of a drawback from the big sling forward in terms of all of that rent growth. And certainly it's changed the underwriting aspects of investors and acquisition arms. So I'll just give you a Phoenix data point. There were only 24 transactions in the first half of 2023. In 2021, which was the most on record, there were 252. So, that's a significant shift. And certainly if you look historically, directly related to interest rates and cap rates, decompressing.
It's interesting. It came to mind. I went to Atlanta Apartment Association Market Outlook, and the broker who was doing a presentation compared and contrast what you just stated to the office sector. And it was kind of a silver lining for multifamily in that one office transaction had happened in Atlanta that same time frame. So yeah. So, hey, we're doing better than office. Not to shame on office, but well, John, I appreciate that as an opening. I know that's a hard opening for a podcast, and I appreciate your perspective on the marketplace. I want to back up a little bit. And you have an interesting story that I heard on another podcast that I'd love for you to share, if you don't mind, for our audience. We have both viewers and listeners, but the way you got into the industry is super interesting to me. And what I would ask, if you don't mind, is the story itself is awesome, but what I really would love to hear you speak to are the life lessons that you took away from the way you made it into the industry, starting from, the story about your mom until the time you got to Phoenix. I think there are probably some incredible lessons that you've applied to your life related to those moments in time.
Yeah, no question. I'll shorten up the front version, so I'll get to the Mark Taylor portion in real estate. But, born in southern Minnesota, family very blue collar, very poor. My mom was a single mother, had me in high school. She was a scrapper. And at age 9, she remarried, and I moved to an even smaller town in southern Minnesota of 606 people called Amboy, Minnesota. No one knows where that's at unless you're in Amboy or southern Minnesota. But it was a farming community. And what was great is three things. I got my own room, which is the first. I slept on the floor of my grandparents for many years. So got my own room. I got a landline, Mike, so I could call my friends. Whoa. Online. So for the kids' ears on the phone, that's an actual physical line. Right. And then additionally, even though I didn't like it at the time, my stepfather was a workaholic and an entrepreneur. So from age 10 until 18, I was Mike Rowe, Jr. So I was the dirty jobs guy. I did all of the
Understood.
farming jobs you can think of, laundry list pigs to soybeans to farming to tractoring, all of those things. So I learned the power of work ethic. And I think that's benefited me tremendously through my career in college. So fast forward to college, with little strategy, I said, I don't want to be a farmer. So another life lesson, don't do what you know you don't want to do. So I went into electrical engineering because I was good at math. And 5 years later, I worked my way through school. I was traveling around the world with a small company, semiconductor company called VTech. And it was a great experience for me because I got to see a lot of places across the world, which I'd really never traveled.
Sure.
So another learning point for me, or tipping point. I knew Minnesota was not long for me. A lot of great places across the world, and I was fortunate enough to travel to Phoenix, Arizona, during that time frame through Motorola and VTech. So I convinced my girlfriend Megan at the time to move to Phoenix with I'll say heavy resistance, but she said yes. So we flew down August of 2001. We toured probably 12 to 15 communities. For the Gen X baby boomers, I had the old apartment guide book with the big gatefolds. Remember those? I mean, your
Very
bicep would
familiar.
get big carrying them. And I found this huge gatefold, and it said sand, 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 sand. It was a bunch of Mark Taylor communities. I'm like, we got to go check these out because I lived in a really underwhelming duplex, and I'm like, these look cool. So we toured 10 or 15 communities. Last stop on the train was San Cervantes, which was a Mark Taylor development. I had no idea what Mark Taylor was or who he was or if it was two guys or three guys or what, but it looked cool. So it was under construction, just opened. Unfortunately, the office was closed. So I like to joke with my new hires, we actually broke in to my first Mark Taylor,
Oh,
meaning kind of stuck around the amenity spaces. There were a couple of living buildings open. So we walked around, and I saw this enormous pool, sand beach pool, water features, music on the little speaker rocks, TVs in the Ramadas, people having a great time. I'm like, we have to live here. So we flew back that night excited, called the manager I'm still friends with today, Michelle Sinclair, and just said, hey, what's a two-bedroom going to cost me? $940 a month with a month free. I'm like, sign me up. So we packed up our U-Hauls and moved a couple weeks later. Megan had a job. I was, really trying to figure out my career path through engineering, and had a final interview with a fuse company out of Chicago. They were going to open a satellite office in Phoenix. Well, my final interview and I'll say paperwork signing was scheduled for 9/13/2001. So obviously 2 days after the 9/11 attacks, there were no flights. As you know, most of us were scared, didn't know what was happening. The world was shifting before our eyes, and they put a hiring freeze or moratorium on the Phoenix project, and my world kind of went south from a career perspective. I
sure.
was, heavily focused on semiconductors and cell phones and all those things, and those jobs just kind of dried up. So after moving into Cervantes, or San Cervantes, it was a great experience. I was sending out my resume daily. So I was in the office sending out faxes, of course. And about 3 months later, with not a lot of traction, Michelle, the manager, came to me and just said, hey, John, would you consider a part-time leasing position? The staff enjoys your company. You're educated. What say you? And in my fixed mindset, I said, no way. No way. I'm an engineer pounding my chest with little humility at the time. And about a week later, I came to my senses. Got to pay bills. Got to do those things. So I signed off on accepting that role, and absolutely fell in love with real estate. And got a call about 6 months later from a company I'd sent a resume to, and I just thought about it for about a millisecond and said, no, I'm going to play this real estate thing out. And 20 plus years later, here I am.
That is an incredible story, and I appreciate you sharing it, and even the life lessons along the way. And it's I it makes me think that where you sit today, you have a huge appreciation for. My imagination tells me you played every single role in the multifamily industry. It gives you a huge appreciation for what site team members endure on a daily basis. It gives you a whole new perspective for the way that you govern. How did that time on site, or how does it play into the way you lead today?
I think it's being grounded. It's having humility, which I didn't have at the time. Pretty proud of myself. And just having a true appreciation for what our on-site team members do on a daily basis. I know the roles have changed dramatically, but to your
Sure.
point, I've worked all of those roles. I purposely cleaned apartments. I purposely turned units. I scheduled turn boards, leased apartments, all of those things as I worked my way up. And I just truly have an appreciation for what they do. And I think about my journey when I became president in 2016. I still have this in my notes today. I said, I have to ensure now that I'm in this role that I allow future Mark Taylor employees, future family members to connect to the organization like I did, regardless of our size or scale. So that today is very prominent in our strategic initiatives when we think about people, excellence, and growth. People first, they have to, have the ability to connect to us. They have to want to, and they have to connect their purpose, which I think we'll talk about later. But the reality is, I want to ensure that's always the case, and that's why I sit down with every new hire group every Monday for about an hour and talk about the why, the how, and what I think I can bring to the table for them.
I do want to play on that word purpose that you just mentioned, and I'm familiar because I listened to a podcast and learned a little bit about the Monday meetings. One of the things that I gleaned was that you literally ask people to share their personal mission statement.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you do that, and what are you attempting to sort of connect that to?
Well, I think what's fantastic. So if I picture for you in the audience our new hires, so they go through a 2-day process. It's fantastic. I'm there day one. They've already had a chance to go through our vision, mission, and principles, and learn a little bit more about our organization in the room that we do this in. We have a timeline going back to 1985 when we started the organization, meaning Jeff, Mark, and Scott Taylor. And there's some high points on that timeline, but most importantly, there's an arrow at the very end of the timeline. So I ask them 2 questions. What's your mission statement, and what do you think the meaning of that arrow is? So typically one person or two, it's usually 5 to 15 people will say, I have one, and they'll walk us through it. And I'll say, okay, that's great. And I'll say, okay, I think, or maybe I don't think, I'll be transparent. I think your mission statement can or can't connect to our mission statement, which is really our purpose, right? To create exceptional communities that invite, inspire, and feel like home. So the others that don't have one, or they're contemplating, putting one together, I'm like, you guys got to write this down. You got to spend some time for the next 90 days. That's my challenge to them. Day 0 through 90, put your personal mission statement together. And in doing so, it'll change, it'll adjust. Mine's changed over the period of many years. And I'll share mine. I'm like, my mission statement today, it's changed, is to empower, support, and unify our culture so that someday our employees will love Mark Taylor as much as I do. I mean, it's pretty simple, right?
Yep.
So I'll ask them to do that and then try to connect their mission statement within the 90 days to ours. Because we know turnover, and this is for most companies, many sectors, right? Most turnover happens 0 day through 6 months. So if they can create that mission statement, look at their own purpose and connect to ours, I think they'll be here a long time and be successful. And the reason I point out the arrow, I think a lot about the infinite journey of our business. And I used to be a guy that competitive, ego, got to win at all costs. That's changed a great deal over the years. And I think Jordan Peterson has a quote who I enjoy. It's not about winning; it's about growth. And if you're growing and getting better than yesterday, that's winning. And that's what my challenge to them is. Like, think about that in your journey with Mark Taylor. Look at the arrow. We're in this infinitely, right? We want to be in business 40, 50, 60 years. We've made it 38 years. Why can't we go 40, 50, 60 and beyond? And it's less about winning today; it's more about growing.
It strikes me that you're creating alignment in the organization. If you can, to an extent, enrich one's life germane to their personal mission while aligning it with your company mission, it's not to be cliche, but it's sort of a win-win scenario, right?
Yes.
It also brings to mind, I love Peter Drucker, and I think he made a statement akin to this. I'll butcher it, but it was like, organizations are really created. Mark Taylor was created. Record Residential was created. Lots of organizations across this great country were created to serve the people that serve it, right? Mm-hmm. And to the extent that we do that really well, then the customer wins, the team member wins, the vendor partners win, the investors win, everybody wins when you can create that kind of alignment in an organization. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, you said the word create matters, right? So I connected to, I think he has the quote, when you think about controlling the future, you have to create it. And it's some form of that version, right? Creating the future is about you in controlling that. Hubert Jolly, who ran Best Buy, you know that name for many years. I'm probably butchering his last name, but it had a great book, and he calls it the human magic. So
That's
creating that purpose. He tells a great story about two Best Buy employees, and this is a great story. So this connects for me for purpose. So two Best Buy, and he calls them blue shirts because we're blue. We call our shirts, we bleed blue, so we talk about blue shirts all the time. But two associates one day had a mom and a 5-year-old boy come in. Boy was in tears. His dinosaur was broke, and like, oh, our dinosaur is on life support. We need help. And the two associates kind of, turned around, discussed a few things, and they could have easily said, hey, aisle 7, section 4, go get a new dinosaur, we'll replace it, which would have been, I guess, fine. But they came over to the little boy and said, hey, we're gonna do something for your dinosaur. And they asked him what his name, I don't remember what the name was. So they take the dinosaur, and they come back about 5 to 10 minutes later and like, good news, your dinosaur was successful in surviving his surgery. We gave him surgery, and he's back to life. So they went and got a new dinosaur. Obviously, the same dinosaur replaced it. And that little boy was never happier than that. And guess where that mom always shops? That store for Best Buy, for products, for electronics. And that was the human magic moment. They didn't have to do it. It wasn't in the SOP manual, but they chose to make an experience for that little boy in that moment. And that's the human magic. That's the purpose.
Thank you for telling that story. That is wonderful. It's a wonderful demonstration. I know a little bit about Mark Taylor as it relates to the conversation that you and I had last November, and certainly Patrick Antrim has shared a lot. I know it to be the most prestigious real estate firm in all of Arizona and maybe all of the country. It really does carry that kind of brand weight. And I have to believe that is the culture that is created there. And I have to believe that is predicated on a real commitment to creating a consumer experience that is really high touch, highly relational, and disappears a lot of the transactional oriented work that has been historically part of our business. I know that is really built on the backbone of technology, and you guys are really at the leading edge of that, or at least as from my viewpoint.
Sure.
Talk to me about how you employ technology to actually free up that time so employees can have real relationship with the residents and the consumers that they serve.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really difficult to get that right? There's a secret sauce. There's an element of, can I just do it with lots of really talented people in training? What kind of technology do I need? And there's so many different technology platforms. There's so many things happening from a warp speed perspective in technology. You throw in AI, generative AI, and all of those things. I mean, there's a lot of things happening that are kind of, I'll just say, cresting in this environment for multifamily today. But I'll go back to the pandemic in April of 2020. Quick story: Governor Ducey of Arizona shuts down businesses with the exception of necessities and things like that, service, health, all those things. And our doors are locked. And we look at our data from April 1st through April 30th, and we realized that we had leased almost twice as many apartments as we otherwise would have on a per unit basis. And we had our executive meeting, it was like May 5th or May 6th, and we're going, what just happened? Right. And so we kind of work through that data. We confirm it's right. We confirm again it's right. And I just looked around the room and I said, guys, all this tells me today, and we were scared as just like everybody else, but I said,
sure,
regardless of what happens with this pandemic, I said, if we come out on the other side, the old apartment business model that we all know to be true, tried and true, is dead. It's no longer alive. So we quickly shifted resources, ammunition, and focus on how do we look at every aspect of our business operationally, deconstruct, what do we have to have? What do we not have to have? What do we have to do at the site level? And also incorporating kind of the zeitgeist of the day, meaning self-servicing, the advancements in technology, all of those things were at play. And I'll say 3.5 years later, we've learned a lot. We're not there yet, but we've introduced Integrated Operations Network, which is our ION centralized hybrid leasing and services. And, I think this journey's taught me a lot about the business in that, you can never just rest on your laurels and say, well, we're the best. Let's just keep doing what we've been doing and we'll be successful. And it goes back to one of our principles, and my personal principle: be better than yesterday. And you got to find ways to, do you always have to reconstruct your business? No, but you have to look for opportunities to grow. And through this process of building ION, it's been tremendous for our organization. It's really given us a bolt of energy, a lightning effect in terms of getting everyone really focused on what we could be in this space. And I know there's some other folks trying to do this across the country. Dustin Lacey, who you met, our VP of Technology and Marketing, he leads a national monthly call about how to really structure this or framewire this for the success of the industry. But it's centralization, it's ION, and empowering that with technology to meet the needs of our residents, our employees, and our clients. So one more thing I'll add is that we did a white paper in the first quarter of 2021. And the purpose of that was we said, okay, what elements of this make sense for our sphere of business involvement? So all I mean by that is, if you think about centralization in ION, how does it affect residents, our customers? How does it affect our employees? And how does it affect our ownership groups? Because we're 85% third-party managed. And as we went through that process and really tried to unravel what that looked like, I can unequivocally say that it checked the boxes, yes, 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 for all three, right? We can create a better 5-star experience for residents, better 5-star experience for employees, and certainly enhance the bottom line and success rates for investments in our ownership groups. So that was kind of the inception of the white paper. And, 3 years later, here we are.
What do you see? So there's so much to unpack here. And I do think you're right. Everybody's doing some iteration of this, and some are in the early innings. Others are far more along in the ball game, such as yourself. And let me take a little side street for a second. How do you define centralization, just out of curiosity?
I define it as, it's really one word: specialization. So I'll give you an example. As I said earlier, I worked in many different roles throughout property management over the years. And I'll go back to the assistant manager. The assistant manager still today has to do collections. They have to do customer service, resident retention, sales, management when the manager's away. They have to understand all of the legalese, Landlord and Tenant Act laws. They have to distribute 5-day notices. I mean, think about all of those things from a generalist perspective. There's no possible way, Mike, that person can be great or deliver a 5-star performance in all of those categories.
That's right.
Simply put, we have now what we call we have acronyms to death with our organization. So PFOAs, so really financial operators that focus on all the things that an assistant manager would do in a specialized manner. And we have many of them in place handling those 5 days, handling collections, handling month-end close, because that's what they want to do. So not only does it create specialization, but it creates more career paths for folks like that. Someone might be a leasing consultant, but they're not. They understand they want to be in multifamily, and they're starting in leasing like I did. But maybe they want to do bookkeeping. They want to get more into the numbers, the financial side of the game. Well, here's another career path for you. And I think that's just exponentially growing as we build ION. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 new roles as it pertains to that in counting. So, specialization for centralization, that's what that means to me, and opportunities for our people.
Leasing teams can spend more than 6 hours every week sending welcome letters, following up, collecting documents, and yet residents still show up on move-in day unprepared. Move-in day sets the tone for the entire relationship with that resident. Getting it right matters. According to Kingsley, residents happy with their move-in experience are 59% more likely to renew their lease. Move-ins matter. Jenna Miller, the Senior Director of Marketing and Customer Experience at Bozzuto, says Updater has been instrumental in helping them remove friction from the move-in process. They rely on Updater to save leasing teams valuable time and create a consistent and branded move-in experience across the entire portfolio. To see Updater in action, visit go.updater.com/Mike. As a thank you to my listeners, Updater is offering a special gift when you book a demo. Move-ins matter. Get them right with Updater. That's go.updater.com/Mike. And I appreciate you unpacking that. I love this concept of centralization. I worked for Equity Residential too many years ago. I don't want to say how long ago, but a long time ago. And they started out by centralizing the assistant manager's role, just like you described, it was a different iteration of it, but they started out doing that. So I'm really intrigued by centralization and the application of it in the industry. But let's say there are at least 4 or 5 definitions of centralization, and it's hard to really unpack that across an industry. But I appreciate your definition of that, and I think I agree with that. So I'm interested. Ion is specific to the leasing experience. Is that correct, or is that applicable all across administration and also maintenance as well?
Maintenance too. So what we know to be true is the service side is really difficult.
Yes.
Right. I mean, so we're attempting to centralize, just say scheduling. So for folks listening, I mean, obviously, you know how difficult it is to schedule out just say a turn board on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And, trying to incorporate that into a structure where you can schedule out multiple properties, potting with properties, and really ensuring efficiencies through technology. So, I've scheduled boards before, and, we have projects that are 600 units. That's a real head scratcher. You're looking at the board saying, oh my God, how do I even start? What do I paint first? What do I clean first? What do I replace carpets with first? So there's a variety of things that we know technology can handle today. So partnering with the right vendor sources, partnering with the right software developers. If we don't like something, we build it from a software perspective. So those are things we have to do. That's how we challenge ourselves to improve, that experience for not only our employees, but also our residents. So you just think about that in a nutshell for service. If we can schedule out our board for a week in the most efficient manner, that relieves our I'll just say on-site teams, our maintenance supervisors, our managers from that headache, right? Because that's a stress point. So how can we eliminate those stress points, both from our employees and our residents? Let's talk about self-servicing. I mentioned that earlier. We realized through the pandemic that a lot of people didn't want to be shown around by a leasing consultant to see a unit.
That's right.
Hey, I don't need Sarah from the leasing office telling me about all of these great features of the apartment. I just need to get in between my lunch and my next meeting. I just got to go look at the apartment and see if I like it. I've already done all of my research. I see these great virtual tours, these great videos. There's so much information online that, they really can unpack most of the things about that community or submarket or location. And obviously understanding what reviews are saying in terms of residents about, is it a 4-star or 5-star experience, and just get in and out in 10 minutes. So we have to take care of that prospect in that manner. So we have to be flexible. That's all I'm saying from a self-servicing perspective. Some people want the full white glove service, like the full tour. Absolutely. So we got to meet the needs of our customers in all of those different varieties, from Generation Z to baby boomers.
Oh, wow. I have to ask you a question as it relates to that. And I'm bouncing all over the place. That's just the way my brain works. So
same.
I'm super interested in, yeah, sorry about that. We're starting out with macro economy, and now we're talking about, so my curiosity is there are, I think, maybe 5 generations in the workplace today, right? From traditionalists all the way to Gen Z, I think. I think there are 5. And my imagination tells me that you probably employ at least 4 or 5 generations in your organization. You also serve 4 or 5 generations in your offering, your residential buildings. How do you go about, or do you even give thought to this? How do you go about, obviously every one of those cohorts sort of demand different things as it relates to an experience. How do you discern serving a traditionalist versus serving a Gen Z and making sure that everybody gets the 5-star experience?
Great
the way they
questions.
want us, right?
Yeah. So as of last month, we now have more Gen Zers employed out of 695 employees than we do millennials, believe it or not.
Wow.
So that's
Wow.
happened, which we knew it would. We just didn't know when. What happened last month.
Right.
But yes, we have a variety of folks, a lot of long-term employees. I think it goes back to the original statement I made. If each employee knows why we're doing this is a Simon Sinek thing, right?
Right.
The why. What's the why? What's the purpose? And if they can connect to it, regardless if you're 75 or 25, and it fits your personal mission statement, you might be more technology savvy at a different generation level, but if you can connect to that purpose, we'll find a way for you to be successful. And I think for prospects or residents, in that manner, we think about it as a journey, right? So from that first touch point, how do we create that 5-star experience and understanding what they want, right? So first, it's connecting with them. If they reach out to us, we spend a lot of money in marketing and brand
Sure.
equity to get them to call us or text us or show up at our community. How do they want to be communicated with? How do they want to be followed up with? So there's so many ways to do that, but
Right.
a big piece is just answering the phone. So part of our centralized approach is having our MT concierge team, which we have now in the second building of our campus, answering the phones at a plus 90% clip. We know the industry is below 50%.
That's right.
Why is that? I mean, it's not that property XYZ or management company ABC is bad. It's just that we're asking a leasing consultant or a staff to take tours, to answer calls, to take resident requests, to take a lunch break. Of course, they're not going to answer the phone. It doesn't
That's
mean they're
right.
not working hard. We're just setting them up for failure. If we have an
Right.
MTR concierge available with redundancy, they're going to answer the phone. That's the role. That's the specialization. And then if that prospect wants to self-guide tour, we'll absolutely do that. We'll set up the appointment. If that prospect wants the full white glove experience, great. And we try to do that through the entire journey of that resident, from prospect to resident to move in. And of course, we focus heavily on that experience from day one of lease to end. And then we really think about it. Okay, they're moving out. We'd want them to come back, right? So now they're alumni. So you think
Yeah.
about how great institutions, Michigan State, Texas, ASU, pick great universities, alumni associations matter. So same thing with employees. If you leave, I want you to come back. I
Right.
usually have one every other week or two that come back to us. Grass is greener, life-changing event, moved out of state. They're like, I got to get back to Mark Taylor, which I love. Come on back, right? You left us in good terms. We want you to come back. So I know I unpacked a lot there, but I think it's about just meeting the needs of that customer and employee.
Yeah. You couldn't have said it better. I do think in a world that is giving us the opportunity to highly specialize things in a reduced amount of time, predicated on this technology, you can serve various generations and do it quite well. But obviously augmented by technology
Mm-hmm.
and our ability to connect in that way. It brings to mind, how are you thinking about AI as it relates to, I guess, Ion? I know AI carries a lot of buzziness today, and a lot of
Sure.
people are bolting it onto things, and it isn't necessarily doing as advertised. So I'm curious how you're thinking about that and incorporating it into your workflows.
Sure. So we were really heavily involved with understanding. I'll go back to 2018. Um, I don't think we were doing a very good job of understanding lead gen and essentially what we spent in the marketing space and what we were receiving in
Sure.
terms of quality of prospects, how many leads, how many qualified phone calls, um, lease conversions, all of those things. So we looked at a variety of different CRMs and just said, you know what, we feel like there's some inadequacy here across the market. Let's partner with someone to build our own, essentially. So we partnered with a group called Union and built our CRM platform, which has evolved today, which really Union powers Ion. And what I mean by that is they are the centralized hub that allows us to be a bit agnostic. And what I mean by that is agnostic with properties. So if I'm a leasing consultant with Ion as an MTR concierge, essentially, so if you
Mhm.
go from leasing to concierge, I can have a dashboard of 3 to 5 properties working through Union. I can have live chats, phone calls, all of that data is live, and I'm getting assistance surfaced by AI. So we call our AI through Union called Hobbs. So Hobbs will be right there if you have a question. Just say you're brand new to the job, MT
Yeah.
concierge, and you're first day on the job after training, and you get a question surfaced from a prospect. Well, in the chat, Hobbs is delivering you answers. Pet breeds, I don't know what they are exactly. Well, Hobbs already brought that up into the chat. So I can just
Ah,
communicate that through the chat or verbally. And then Hobbs is communicating with prospects as well. So, the natural learning language is, I think, if you assess the environment of what we have across the country, the best do maybe 200 200 answers. We're striving for 400 or 500 with Hobbs and beyond that. So I think that's building over time, and I think AI will continue to impose its will in that journey. And I think it helps with accuracy, consistency, and speed. Meaning, if a prospect wants something now or a resident, Hobbs can deliver that immediately, times exponential conversations or phone calls or what have you. So I think that's the AI piece of it. But really, what's the opportunity for that concierge person to really create that 5-star experience with the augmentation of AI? That's a big piece of it.
definitely. Is that, I'm just curious, the database that you're training Hobbs, that my imagination tells me that it's Mark Taylor's database, but is it married together with other databases that are much more broad in scope, or is it just
Well,
limited to the?
most of it's us. So what we also do, and I think, which is tremendous, and I would recommend this, and I don't know if this is secret sauce or not, but I'm more about everyone getting better.
Sure.
So what we'll do is occasionally we'll send out, meaning Union will send out questions to our staffing teams. So we have 102 properties. So
Okay.
they'll send out, just say 10 questions. How would you answer this? And everyone has the opportunity to respond. Or if we set up a property, we might have, 15 questions for that property, and our leasing staff is confirming answers. And then once Hobbs receives those, he'll send out another, if there's calibration necessary, he'll get approval from, another layer, an assistant manager or manager saying, is this accurate? And if they check the box, leasing said this, based on the data they have, okay, we'll implement that. So it's helping with setup times for new communities. It's helping just, I'll say, advance Hobbs's approach to the business in terms of how they answer questions through that process.
Got it. I I'm interested. I've had this vision for a very long bit of time, and it so notice to vacate in any property management system, right? Whatever you're using doesn't matter, but that is a catalyst or a prompt, right? That apartment is about to become vacant. You have a little
Yes.
bit of advance notice. I had this vision that at some point on the marketing side of this equation, your systems become smart enough, and they're listening broadly out in the world to conversations that are happening, on TikTok or X, now formerly known as Twitter, other spaces of Facebook where people are having conversations. The systems are getting sophisticated enough to go out and actually find that person who is in Idaho about to move to Phoenix at that precise time that prompt happened in that notice vacate. And it's sophisticated enough with AI and generative AI to actually produce sort of cinematic marketing experiences that are tailored to that person in Idaho, that really highlight the essence of the community that you might be able to offer up to them. Are you aiming in that direction?
Absolutely. I think we're starting small, and purposely we're trying to aim small and miss small. So part of that notice to vacate process, I think, we should be able to really, based on our surveys and our interaction with those residents, we should know at a pretty high percentage if they're going to renew. Like it
Sure.
shouldn't be 90 days out. We have a 60-day notice policy in Arizona, 30 in Nevada. So when you think about that, we should know a long time before that process if they're actually going to stay with us. So we're working on that portion of the journey heavily right now to understand how that looks from just an automatic prompting perspective, and then how we uncover through those surveys with the right questions, a meaningful interaction to say, okay, we get that they want to be with us longer term. I mean, there's certainly a percentage we know. I'll just say 10% arbitrary number that are just going to move out, right? They're buying a
Sure.
house. We have a Class A renter, average household demographic of 115,000. So they're even though I'll say the single family market today, as I'll steal Ivy Zellman's quote, it's stuck. But we still have our highest percentage buying homes. So they're capable of doing so financially, regardless of rates. And just really understanding that resident. And I think it's about relationship, getting to know them well enough to say, okay, we know their journey's not over at the end of the lease. Let's extend that out or not. And we'll move on. So I think the next phase is exactly what you described.
Got it. And my imagination tells me that part of that target market, to your point about alumni group, if you've created this just vibrant pool of alumni, you can certainly target those people that might want to come back to live in a Mark Taylor community.
Well, let me just add. So as of right now, and we've known this for a while, we track Google Analytics closely, and it's part of our marketing playbook. And I know exactly what cities and what states we're getting the most search on marktaylor.com. LA County continues to be second behind Phoenix Metro, without question. So I just hope California continues to do what they do, so people continue to want to come to Arizona.
Yeah.
Thank you, LA
They're doing
County.
a pretty good job of helping people exit the state. So, no offense to California. It's a whole other topic. So I recall when we were together in November, I heard a sidebar conversation, or maybe it was Dustin that described this, and I'm going to do my best to describe it to you, and I'm sure you can hopefully key off of this. So there's an ILS that exists in the traditional sense, but what I heard, or the story I'm telling myself, is that you've created your own internal ILS or your own standalone ILS that he had a term for it that I can't recall. Hopefully you can play off of that, but how does that work exactly?
Well, yeah. So the term really is, we in 2018 went ILS independent. And all I mean by that is traditionally, most property management companies or ownership groups require the need to be on apartments.com, apartment list, etc. So with the exception of, I'll just say, ownership groups that require it, we are ILS independent. And what we've learned is that there's ways to really cut through that noise. And I think going back to pre-18 and when we really wanted to focus on our CRM and understanding, for every dollar we spend, what do we actually receive? There's a lot of wasted noise in that type of space historically. You get a lot of noise. And what I mean by that is you'll get a lot of traffic. But for us at the Class A level, we know there's only about 8% of the renter base that is seeking a Class A elevated rental experience, both from affordability and experience perspective. So, we have to be very precise in our targeting with our ad spends, our PPCs, all of those things. And really, we've learned over time, mark-taylor.com is really like an ILS operating alongside those. Now, do we accept ad money from anyone else but ourselves? No. But it generates a significant amount of organic traffic, which is what matters, right? New, unique visitors to our site seeking Class A luxury. So we've been able to navigate that. Now we're afforded a lot of benefits in terms of the length of time mark-taylor.com's been in play, 25 plus years. We're in 2 specific marketplaces. We have tremendous penetration, almost 24,000 units just in Phoenix in Class A only. So all those things are giving us an advantage from that perspective. Google actually came to us 2 years ago and wanted to set up some marketing calls, which is very unique. No one really ever talks to Google, as you know. And they were quite amazed that we were a top 20 query search, meaning Mark-Taylor, in all of the state of Arizona. And they didn't understand how. So, once they connected the dots and understood, our strategy, from a marketing perspective, they got it. But it's been, I'll just say, a very positive experience knowing that we can pivot in this direction and really support, I'll just say, transparency around where our marketing dollars go with our client base.
That's wonderful. Yeah, there's nothing like throwing millions of dollars at the wall and hoping something sticks and brings traffic your way, and especially qualified traffic your way.
I'll just add one component to that, Mike. I would say, going back, if I could change anything, right? We no regrets, but we had so much voluminous lead activity from 2013 through today, even. It's remarkable. Like, we're trying to pull those leads back and just ensure that we're finding qualified leads, finding the signal versus all of that noise. And I guarantee you, we spent a lot more money than we should have in the 2010s because we didn't actually know exactly where we needed to be. Throwing stuff on the wall, hoping it sticks. But now we know for every 100 leads what it produces from a conversion perspective, and we can really dial that back into how many leases we need per month per property. That's what we're drilling down to. Precision.
Precision. Yeah, that's right. And you have all the tools at your disposal today to be able to do that
yes.
kind of thing. You're a very innovative organization. The culture really does support innovation. I'm curious how you do a lot of listening internally to your consumers, to your team members, but my imagination tells me that you're also looking out in the world and taking inspiration from maybe other companies, other industries, et cetera, et cetera. I'm curious if you could share some of those things you look at outside of your organization, outside of your walls, that inspire some of the things that you do internal.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I look specifically for great leadership, great, I'll just say thoughtful folks that either run businesses or they're just, I'll say from a human growth perspective, they get it, right? They're just thought. Mm-hmm. That's why I mentioned Jordan Peterson, Simon Sinek, Hubert Jolly, all of those folks. I think you're right. I think there's things that great businesses do across all sectors that matter. I think NVIDIA is one. That's I think they're reporting their numbers today. But NVIDIA is a great leader. They really pushed for I'll just simplify it, but the chips that really support generative AI long term, and they saw that before others. So, I think it's about seeing around the corner. It's about ensuring that, when it comes to innovation, that you're looking at opportunity as something that's not a threat, right? Innovation is opportunity, and you have to look at other great companies. And I talk a lot about this with our organization in terms of great companies over time, and I can name many, 3M, Netflix, Amazon, how they pivoted Apple over the history of their time. So 3M, interesting story. I'm from Minnesota, so 3M. They were a big supplier of tape and reel for my old VTech semiconductor company. But 3M started as a mining company, Minnesota and mining.
That's right.
Ironically, yes, they were looking for a certain substance in Minnesota. And fast forward to today, they're doing adhesives and higher technology things. Netflix was deliverer of VHS tapes, right? Now they're one of the leaders in the world in terms of media and content. So I just think you have to look for opportunities to pivot. Amazon, they were a bookstore, and now I try to talk about Ion and consulting like Amazon with their cloud services in AWS. Right. That's a significant advancement. So growth opportunities, ways to pivot. We have great people, but understanding the needs of our prospects and residents and how our journey transforms long term. We think a lot about that within the walls of Mark Taylor.
I'm interested at the senior level in your organization. What are you doing as a team to sharpen each other's saw, so to speak? Are there internal leadership development or things that you would intentionally do to make John a better person, to make Dustin a better person? I know you have a guy you lived next door to when you first got into the industry, and his name escapes me. I apologize, but how are you guys sharpening each other's saw?
So, we have our executive meeting once a month. We have our directors meeting once a month. Next week, actually, we have a 2-day internal executive summit, but it includes 58 people, meaning managers and above at the corporate office level. So it's a 2-day. It starts off, I'll provide my vision, 2030 vision and beyond. So they understand, the where we're going component of it. Of course, there's been a lot of influence there. It's not just me saying this is what I see for 2030 and beyond. But then it delves into leadership. It delves into what we're calling momentum. how do we create this energy as leaders to support the vision and the why behind it and push forward, right? So we're trying to create this momentum, but everyone's involved. Everyone has a voice at the table. It's not just John speaking for 8 hours and then we break. We have breakouts, right? And we question, we go back and forth, we debate, right? All of those things have to be in place to ensure that, we're I don't want to say missing anything, but really uncovering all of the questions that should be asked on the front end, and pushing back, right? We're challenging each other. And, when I'll say it this way, when there's a lack of trust in an organization, you're not going to challenge things. I'll use the Nokia story. Why Nokia failed. If you read that article or briefing, there was a lot of ego. There was very little humility. I used to work with Nokia back in my VTech days, and I tell you what, they knew they were the best at the time. And I think with humility and questioning and looking forward and challenging yourself, that's a big piece of it. And at the foundation of that is trust. So if we trust each other, my manager of marketing can come to me and say, John, that's a ridiculous idea. Why do you think that would work? And I say, well, this is why. And she might say, that's not the answer, John. This is why you should think about it this way. I'm like, oh, I get it. You're right. My bad. So, again, I really don't care about titles. I don't care who creates the best idea, but if it fits within our vision and our strategic initiatives, we're going to move forward.
I love that. Obviously, you've created a culture of trust, where a high trust environment where people can come in and tell you that your ideas are not the best.
I hope so. Yeah.
I think at least word on the street is that you've done that and done a really good job at that. I'm curious, what are you reading these days, or what are you personally being inspired by or paying attention to that's sort of feeding John as a person that shows that, so that you can show up and be a beneficial presence to the people around you and certainly at work, but also at home?
Yeah, I'm an avid podcaster now. So, I'm listening to everything I can get my hands on. And I try not to just, narrow in on certain subject matters. I try to be as broad as possible and really listen to, from just say Bill Maher to, Elon Musk, whatever that looks like. And I'm just trying to influence myself with lots of data points and see things from different perspectives. And, I think, years ago, I felt like there was a lot more conversation. There was a lot more debate. I feel like there's a lot of siloing today. You can get your information from a lot of places. I think that's the social media effect. You create silos and biases, and you get stuck in your little bubble. And, if I sit around with, just say 3 liberals for 3 weeks and then 3 conservatives for 3 weeks, you're going to start to frame kind of how you feel about the world or think about the world or see it differently. I want all angles. I want to understand, why people are thinking this way, why they're thinking that way, and really make the best decision for myself. And I think I just, being a lifelong learner, Jordan Peterson has, if you read his 12 rules, it was, I think, his last book. He's got another one coming out. But there's a few that I loved about that book. It's a long book. But the takeaways, like one is really be friends with people that want you to succeed. And I think about younger folks listening today. You want to be popular. You want to be with the it crowd. You just want to connect with a certain group. Well, 2 of those 5 people might not have your best interests in mind. And if you pay attention, it's pretty obvious that they're those people. For me, both in business, personally and professionally, I want to be around people that want John to succeed, because I feel the same way about the people I keep in my circle. And I certainly feel that way about my new employees and existing employees. Like, it's family. So when I go back to my day one, I talk about principles, and I'll just say, hey, incorporate at least one of those into your life. It will be better. And I'm talking about their personal life. It's not about the work aspect. And I said, if you can incorporate all 5, your life will be better. Mine has better relationships with my wife, my daughter, my friends, my colleagues, my coworkers. And the reality is, I'll get them to connect the dots. If you do that, if you use all 5, it's really a calibration method, right? Yeah. You can choose the right attitude or have a bad day. You got to calibrate. Or taking accountability. It's easy to blame, but no. Look in the mirror. What did you do that day to make sure that it was something that was your responsibility? So a calibration effect. And the reason I say that is that if your personal life's better, you have a foundation. you'll be better at the office, right? Your career will be better. You'll show up to work on time. You'll be more engaged at work. You'll be more willing to be curious and grow. So it's really about calibrating at home to ensure that you have a successful career path. The other thing I like about Jordan's rules is he talks about never underestimating, I'm not saying it exactly, but who's sitting across from you and what you can learn from them. So it might be a 19-year-old kid that is just starting as a service technician or housekeeper in new hire. I'm asking them questions. I know they can teach me something. I'm not looking there saying, well, you're 19. You don't, I know everything. No, I'm going to learn from you. And I learned so much in those moments because I'm asking questions and they're amazed that I want to learn from them. And I just think being an ever learner, that's a big piece of it. And I just think the last piece, and this is a personal thing, there's real utility and gratitude, right? Being thankful for what we have, being thankful for things that we have in this country, in this state, in this company, my family. I know you have probably plenty of things to have gratitude towards. And I do that every morning with my wife. We have 3 things we mention every morning. Usually they're different. Sometimes they're the same. But gratitude is really a powerful tool. When you start being grateful for things and putting that in the energy in the universe, positive things happen, in my opinion.
Wow. I can't think of a better way to draw a podcast to a close. That was powerful, John. And I think you're right. It's gratitude is sort of like a muscle, right? And if you're working the muscle in terms of like either speaking it or writing it in a journal, you're exercising that, and you tend to attract things that you work on, right? And gratitude is a wonderful thing to put out into the world. John, it's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. The second time around, I've had the opportunity to spend time with you, and I appreciate I've learned a ton. I had this great, remarkable pad. I took a ton of notes. I also, ironically, I have that book sitting right next to my desk. I can't believe you said that. I was like, oh, it's right there. But I appreciate your time. I appreciate you investing a little bit of it with us here on Collective Conversations. Is there anything you would leave our audience with and or how people might connect with you if they want to ask a question?
Yeah, I think, first thing, imposter syndrome, never put a cap on yourself. It's the easiest thing to do. I can only do this. My journey's only stops here. Throw that away. Whatever you want to create, if you put that out there, there's a good chance you'll get there. So just, remove that. The self-doubt, that's such a self-limiting aspect. And a lot of people do that. I can't. So that's one thing. If you want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn, John Carlson. You can email me, john.carlson@mark-taylor.com, or just find me at mark-taylor.com. You'll find me on the website in the About Us section.
Excellent. Thanks, John. We'll put all of that information in our show notes. And I appreciate your time once more. For everyone else, we'll see you next time on Collective Conversations.
Thank you, Mike. Always great to spend time with you.